Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, my special guest is John Cavanaugh, the state system of higher education chancellor. We're going to talk about some academic changes and, the budget. We're going to talk about that as well with the chancellor, plus two of the state's leading reporters. What did the legislature and the governor really do? You'll find out following these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hey, welcome back. Well, you know what I forgot? Pennsylvania politics in depth and in detail, and it all starts right now. And guess what? We're going to talk about education, as we often do, with the chancellor of the state system. How are you doing, Chancellor?
Great. Glad to be back.
All right. Well, look, I know that you've done a program review in the Chancellor's office, and it's been pretty widely reported. But look, we have viewers out there that are going to send their sons and daughters, and who knows, maybe even their grandkids, right, to a state system university. What can you tell them about this program review? These academic program reviews are very important. What's going on with the system with regard to the program changes?
Well, Terry, one of the things that we want to make sure that we're doing is offering the right mix of academic programs that meet the needs of the Commonwealth, meet the needs of our students, and meet the needs of the future.
Right.
So on a regular basis, what we like to do is to make sure that the content is current, that we're making sure that we're good stewards of the public's dollars. Mm-hmm. So in the past, we did that almost university by university, but for the first time what we did is we stepped back and said, let's look at it from a system perspective. And what we did is took a look at those programs that didn't have very many majors in them as a place to start. That happens for lots of reasons. One is that the field isn't current anymore. Another very important reason is that needs change or licensure rules change. And so we need to keep up with all of that. So what we've done is taken a look at all those low-enroll programs. We had a lot of conversations with faculty and administrators at our various campuses. And through that winnowing process, we're going to be proposing a list of programs that we feel it's important to put on moratorium so we can reallocate those resources.
Now, you're talking about the majors. Now, let's
right.
just use one as an example. Let's say you've got a physics program. Well, you need physicists on campuses because
right.
lots of different majors, but let's say they might have half a dozen majors. They may eliminate the major or do it in conjunction with another university. Is that
That's right.
something that's conceivable? That's
right. In fact, we've got faculty, I'm glad you picked physics, because we've got faculty in that area in a number of different universities talking about how they might team up and pool their resources across a number of universities and collaborate and create programs like that. We're having similar conversations in language because we would like to add new languages, but no one university has enough resources to do it on their own. So we're having conversations about things like Chinese, like Arabic, but the best way to do that is a collaborative model across universities to leverage those resources.
Now, just in all, to give a complete picture, over the course of years, you have new demands and sort of new thrusts in the academy that require even new majors. So
that's right.
It's sort of odd. I mean, it's an evolutionary, ongoing process. So at some point, you're re-looking at old programs, but you're also what are some, we've talked about these before. You've had, some of the campuses have come on with new programs. Can you
Sure. You know, we have a long heritage, of course, in teacher education, but lots of people don't know that we have very high-end computer security programs at many of our campuses. At Edinburgh, for example, we've got a computer animation program that has placed numerous students at companies like Pixar and the movie industry generally. We're building additional programs in environment and science and those.
So the best thing they can do is get on the websites of these campuses, which I think almost everybody does now. Anyway now, and check out these new programs. Well, I think that's all important, and you know, the changes in campuses, it's got to reflect the reality of what and you're still give us I want to get to the budget and that situation, but how many students in the state system?
117,000. We could be pushing 120 by fall.
Wow. All right, when we come back, we're going to get into the state system's budget. We're going to talk a little bit about those fiscal challenges that face, I guess, not just the higher state system, but, you know, the other, quote, quasi-public universities in this state. That's Penn State, Pitt, Temple, and Casey Care. We'll be back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by PAConstructionJobs.com. For more information about rewarding careers in the highway construction industry, visit PAConstructionJobs.com. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program. We're talking with the Chancellor of the State System of Higher Education, John Cavanaugh, and we're now going to turn our attention to, we're going to take up the budget, the state budget, with a couple of the state's leading reporters and talking about budgets. There's a kind of new fiscal reality, I guess, since this recession that's hit higher education as well as a variety of other programs. Give us a general overview of where you think the state system's budget lies, and particularly how you're planning to deal with this with over 100,000 students. Right. And you got more students now than ever, right?
That's exactly right.
And more applicants now than ever.
Exactly
Is that correct?
Right. That's exactly right.
That's not an easy challenge. So,
well, the budget that the legislature passed and the governor has now would keep us at the same level of state support as last year. So that's the good news. We did not get cut. That includes $38 million out of the stimulus package. That's the same amount as last year. That gets us through fiscal year 10-11, and of course we've been basing our planning on fiscal year 11-12. That's when the stimulus money goes away. The state is going to face some very serious issues and projected shortfalls, as are we. So all of our planning has been around that, and it's for that reason that about half of our campuses have put out letters to their constituents about some very significant budget pressures looking at 11-12 and the potential need for layoffs on those campuses in 11-12. Mm-hmm. We've been changing the way we've been doing our budgeting to look out a little bit, longer horizon than has been typical in the past, and then work backwards and say, what do we need to do today to prepare ourselves for that day in the future?
So in other words, you understand that, I mean, everything that I've heard, it looks like this recession, you know, is going to continue longer than anyone thought. Number two, that the budget situation in Pennsylvania is not going to get any better. Some think it will be worse next year. The majority leader in the Senate said we could be staring at a $5 to $6 billion structural deficit. So but I guess what I never understood is that when we go into recessions, you all get more applicants, and you don't want to turn these students down. I mean, how are you dealing with this dilemma of you know, the demand goes down in lots of places. In your case, it's up.
It's the other way around.
And you got less money.
We go opposite in terms of the way that most of the sectors in employment go. It's a real challenge for us because in order to educate more students, we need to be able to hire some additional people to cover that, and of course that gets into the question, where are those resources going to come from? So that's a big reason why over the last decade we've been doing so much cost reduction, and looking at programs like retirement incentives and all to try to save as much as we can, so that we'll have something to reallocate to try to meet that demand. But it's getting increasingly difficult to do that.
Right. I mean, the thing that's sort of odd about this is that we all preach, and everybody preaches, that you need to do something beyond high school. Now, everybody shouldn't go to college. We know that there's technical schools and all. But we do understand that an educated workforce is the key to success. So so now we're in a recession, and we now have more people, maybe because they can't find jobs, they apply, get into higher education, create an environment where they can go off and do a lot more things. They have a lot more options, for employment. And you find you have less resources to deal with them. It seems so ironic. I mean, it's almost like, well, how do you get your handle around it? And as you point out, it means maybe, I mean, there's reductions on the campuses. As you point out, letters have gone out. Well, do you think, in the main, however, the core of what you do will be preserved, just so people don't get the impression, you know, that somehow...
Certainly, our priority is the academic core of the institution, to make sure that those core programs are still available to students, and that we're providing that education in the most affordable way that we can.
Yeah. So, in terms of budgets, now we don't want to get too much in the minutiae of your budget, but are we looking at? You have a figure here, something like $38 million. I mean,
right.
What is that? What you're going to have to cut?
Well, you know, that's the $38 million is the amount of stimulus money that we have.
Okay.
But
you will lose that, and you're using it now. Are you
right.
using that as part of your budgets on the campuses? Or?
Absolutely. That's all part of our operating budget right now. So.
And that goes away.
Unless the state finds a way to replace it, it'll go away. That's true.
Well, look, thanks for coming in. A great update. Not great news, but you're doing the adjustments that I think people need to know about. All right, guess what? We're going to turn to the state budget. We're going into some of the details of it. This is pretty important. It may be over now, but it's not over in the long run, as I just talked about with the Chancellor. All right, back in a moment for our little reporter roundtable.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Amy Worden from the Philadelphia Inquirer and Robert Swift from Times-Shamrock Newspapers joins me, two of the state's leading reporters. All right, Amy, let's start with you. Finally, 1 of 8, they got the budget done on time by June 30. And, you know, not unexpectedly, no tax hikes, about less than a 1% growth, but there's still some interesting challenges left in the Pennsylvania budget. What are they?
Right. Well, the fact that we actually have a deal should have meant a lot of champagne corks were popping in the Capitol.
Did they, or
but
did they just get out of town?
No, they got out of town. I think everybody was out buying their storm gear, because I think that's what we're heading into. You know,
oh, yeah, good point.
In terms of sort of the unanswered
What
questions.
are a couple of them?
Well, we have a lot of gaping holes to fill. We still have the transportation funding issue. The governor's called for a special session this summer to address that.
And that's like $1.7 billion a year, according to the transportation study. And someone said there's $4 to $5 billion out there in sort of projects. So that's one. Right. How about the Medicaid money?
Right, expecting $850 million from the federal government to help cover the costs of more people needing Medicaid because of higher unemployment. And that money is not in any way, shape, or form assured. In fact, you know, last word from Washington was it's going to be considerably less.
So we got the transportation situation. Robert, does the legislature come on July 20th in the middle of the summer after facing this budget? Do they really come back? What do they do?
I don't see that happening. That's what the governor has asked for. I think for the legislature, what they're really looking at is a real narrow window in September and October. And remember, the Senate has said it doesn't want to do a lame duck, which means they're going to be gone by mid-October. So all these whatever else is going to get done, that's going to be the real pressure. Now, if they did come back in the summer, it'd be a show 1 or 2 days.
But I mean, look,
they would,
Amy, didn't he call the special session on transportation back in January or February? Was it? And
yes, nobody was listening.
And nobody was listening, and nobody did anything, right?
Actually, no, that's not entirely fair. They have held a couple of hearings.
No, yeah, the transportation chairs.
They're trying,
and they also have some ideas, but you know, we'll get some folks on and we'll chat about that. We don't have to get into detail, but no one argues that transportation with roads and bridges is not a serious problem, do they?
Right. And
no, I mean, is everybody in agreement on that?
There are people like Representative Geist and Markozik who are really want to get something done, want to tackle this. They're having the hearings, and they see there's a problem. But the leaders have always made it clear nothing was going to happen until the budget was done. And there's still a few remaining. There's still a fiscal, as of over the weekend here, they're dealing with the fiscal bill and another economic project bill that they want to do.
Amy, one of the big stumbling blocks for the longest time was this education increase that Rendell has held out for now. I guess for 3 budgets, this is the third one. Is it $250 million? Do I have that right?
What's the final number?
The final number, $250 million. So, but lots of departments were cut. I mean, as you go through the budget, go ahead.
Right. Well, yeah. Agencies, a number of agencies got hit. Either in double digits or close to, and we're talking about the Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Agriculture, and the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, which is the state parks. Yeah. So how that all is going to play out and affect people who want to visit parks or farmland preservation or environmental cleanup, we're not entirely
Yeah, but you see, you've hit I think Amy's hit on an important point. There's this concern now that's been expressed by the environmental community about Marcellus Shale. In the next segment, I want to talk a little bit about that, the taxes and what might happen. But the fact of the matter is, I thought they were hiring, if I'm right about this, 100, is it 100 new DEP folks to go and make sure that, the Marcellus Shale drilling is done, in an environmentally sound way. But the point, will these go ahead.
That's being done. Those positions are being filled by a hike in the permit fees paid by the drilling.
Okay.
It's producing quite a bit of money. But it is true, there are many, especially in the environmental area, there are some other funds that have been reduced, special funds. So some of these agencies like DP and DCNR are at their lowest historic lows in funding levels already, and now there's further cuts.
Right.
And that's across the board. Library aids, another one. And the Human Services Development Fund, which counties use for social service programs,
that's been cut.
That's way down.
Yep. I read some commentary in the press. All right, we're going to run to break, but I'm going to talk about taxes in a minute. But let me get this straight: less than 1% hike in the budget, correct?
Correct.
2 big winners would be economic development, job creation, and, schools. As Amy points out, schools, right? Point number 3, they didn't do transportation. None of the dealing with roads and bridges are coming back on the 20th to do. All right, so we got that set. When we come back, we're going to talk about taxes. There were no taxes hikes in this budget, but they got to do the important Marcellus Shale tax. We'll talk about that and more following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care.
Hi, welcome back to the program where we're wrapping up the budget discussion with Amy Worden and Robert Swift. Both are journalists who've covered the state capitol for more years than they probably want to admit, given all of the controversies that ensue. All right, Amy Worden, no new taxes in this budget. So what happened? Go through them. No cigarette.
Right. Governor Rendell proposed a number of new taxes back in February. Part of them, actually, he envisioned would be set aside for the coming storm, the pension obligations, and then the loss of federal funding down the road. He said, I don't want to spend these all now.
That would be for the next budget.
Just hold off. And the main one there was the expansion of the sales tax. That immediately fell off the table. But hanging on, almost to the bitter end, were new taxes on smokeless tobacco and cigars, an increase to the cigarette tax. The elimination of the so-called vendor discount for retailers who pay their sales taxes on time, and Marcellus Shale. Now, Marcellus Shale is the only one that is still alive, and there was a deal.
And that is really alive, Robert. Is that right? Amy's great summary, Amy.
Sure.
All right, we got Marcellus Shale is alive and well, but there's and tell us what they decided to do with that?
They have an agreement to enact one by October 1st. It's sort of a replay of the table games story of last year, where they, but they have to decide the tax rate, what the revenues go for, state share versus, helping local communities in the drilling boom areas. They got it gets very complicated. The industry wants certain things. They want something called forced pooling, where if you have out on sign a lease and your neighbors have, they can drill underneath and get the gas into your property. Rendell said there would be no link between any tax and that sort of thing. So then environmentalists are still want the moratorium on the state's forest. So this is a knotty issue that's going to be occupied.
But everybody agrees. I mean, even the Republicans in the Senate that have been more loath to do this agree there will be a tax at some point. The question is when, Amy? Is that it? Has the question always been when?
Well, to a certain degree, yeah. The Republicans held off last year when the governor proposed this because he said
the question is when is when?
Not ready. Industry's not ready. Well, they say that they will have a deal by October. I think the idea is to have the tax in place by January, take effect in January.
Well, what about the politics of this, Robert? Are they going to vote for a tax hike in September or do you think Marcellus Shale is so non-controversial and most people won't care about it?
It depends on what part of the state you're in. I think in the northeast Pennsylvania, which is the site of one of the drilling booms, it's very popular because people remember the coal region legacy. In the southeast, where among suburban Philadelphia districts, there's a lot of support among both parties for this. In the western part of the state, I don't think you're going to get many votes for this, even in the drilling boom areas in southwest Pennsylvania. And in some of the north central areas, even where you had the well blowout in Clearfield County. It's just going to be sort of a regional coalitions on this.
Amy, before we go, let me just ask you this one question. Was the motivating driving force to get this done by June 30, do you think, the elections this year that everybody has talked about? The fact that lawmakers didn't want to be in July and August facing re-election. You think that was a driving force in this?
Well, there seems to be a general understanding that there was an increased motivation this year to get out of town and be able to say we have a budget on time. It's a near flatline budget, as one lawmaker called it, and no taxes.
Yeah, so with no taxes and getting it done on time, they've sort of removed that from the politics. All right, great update. All right, as always, thanks for watching Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and stay well, and we'll see you next week for another show.